Here.
Mayor Lube,
Here.
Youth Councilor Nog, and Councilor Shaw.
Here. Thank you, everyone. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilor staff, do you have any non-agenda items?
None from us, Mayor.
Okay. I would actually like to add a non-agenda item. I have an idea, and so it's on our vandalism and graffiti. Sorry, spaced out for a second. So we will add that, and I don't see any other. Okay. If you would like to call in now, please do so to get in the queue. The phone number is 503-966-4101 to get in line for public comment. And we will go to Assistant City Manager Nyland to report on previous public comment.
Good evening, Mayor Lube and Councilor. At last week's council meeting, we received one written comment for public testimony. We did not receive any in person or by phone or by video. The comment we did receive was one of gratitude and appreciation. The community member was thankful for the city's support in acquiring a hotel for transitional housing. They also talked about the importance of providing other needed services such as mental health resources, addiction recovery, job skills, and more. We wholeheartedly agree, which is why we focus on providing shelter, housing, and wraparound services. This is reflected in council goals, providing stability for those who are experiencing instability. The community member did receive a response, and we did provide ways to stay informed and stay engaged on this very important issue. That is my report.
Thank you so much. City Recorder Krieger, I didn't see any written public comment. Did we happen to receive anything?
No, we received none.
Okay. We do have one person to sign up who signed up today for public comment in person. Mr. Rollins, Clem Rollins, please come up. Right there for you. And then you'll just need to turn the microphone on. And you have 2 minutes. Oh, can you press the button? Thank you.
Okay, there you go. I'm Clem Rollins. I've lived here since 1988. I have a couple of concerns about what's going on in the city. First of all, how much money did you set a bond for this new park outside in the back? How much money did the taxpayers have to kick in for that? Do you know offhand?
So historically, public comment, we receive information and we turn around and we bring information back to you afterwards. But
okay.
I believe Universal Plaza was in total $9 million. Yeah.
Well, my main concern is the city doing anything for the Tiger Police Department? That's my main concern right today. And that's my comment is what is the city doing to try to get a new police station? That's my comment that I'd like to make.
Again, we historically receive information. I can tell you we are actually doing a lot behind the scenes in executive sessions that we can't discuss publicly regarding trying to look at land acquisition and different options for a facility. So it's certainly on our radar, and it's something that we're working hard towards.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Senior Network Administrator Cleary, are there any phone callers in the queue or any callers looking for video today?
We have no one signed up for remote testimony.
Okay, thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is a community organization update with the Family Justice Center for Rachel Schultz and Judy Wiley. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Rachel Schutz. I'm the Executive Director of the Family Justice Center, and Judy Willie is our board chair, but unfortunately she couldn't be here. She had to go pick up her grandson. Family first. So thank you so much again for having me. All of you in your council packets have our annual report from 2022, and I wanted to share a little bit from that report about the City of Tigard and also the services that we've provided to the county, as well as give you guys sort of an overview of what is the Family Justice Center and what do you do? What do we do? So the Family Justice Center is a unique organization. It's a collaboration of multiple different agencies in Washington County that all locate in a single facility. And the reason that we did that is because the experience of survivors of violence and abuse prior to the Family Justice Center was they would need to go to many different locations in order to get their needs met. In fact, the founding of the Family Justice Center was based on one of the chiefs of police in Washington County who had one of his officers take 2 days, 3 days off of work, as legend goes, and take her children and try to make it to all of the different locations that she would need to go to in order to get the services that she needed for if she had just experienced domestic violence. And then he asked her to take public transportation. And as legend has it, in a day and a half, she stopped trying. She said that there's no way that I can do this. I can't do this with kids in tow. I can't find all of the bus routes, etc. Also, I don't understand the intake process for all of these places. I have to wait all of this time. And what the conclusion was is that means it's too difficult to access services, and it shouldn't be, because an individual that's being paid to try to access all the services, let alone an individual that has just experienced a high degree of trauma. So in 2014, a group of community stakeholders, over 60 in fact, of our cities, our county, our chiefs of police, our community-based service providers, and also survivors came together to design a new process for accessing services for domestic and sexual violence. And over the next 4 years until 2018, they planned the Family Justice Center. In 2018, the Family Justice Center opened. It's currently located in Beaverton, renting space in the back of an Arbor Homes building. And we have served since we opened over 16,000 individuals in Washington County. The thing that's really hard is how busy we are. I wish that we didn't have to be as busy as we are, and in fact, in your annual report, you'll see that we saw over 300% more individuals in 2022 than we did in 2021. And in fact, what I always do for all of our cities is I pull their data. So one thing to know about the data that you have in your packet about City of Tigard residents is that not everybody discloses. In fact, not even half, only about a third of individuals disclose where they are coming from. And so in 2022, we served 215 survivors from the City of Tigard with 411 services, which was a 588% increase over 2021. Now, 2021 had the pandemic, and one of the big challenges with the pandemic was not just everything, but the fact that it was not safe to leave your home to seek out services because there wasn't a really good excuse to do that. And so when you can leave your home and you can go to the school to pick up your kids, or you can go to work, or you can go to different places that are open, that's a really good excuse to come to the Family Justice Center, and we see that all the time. But with so much closed and having to shelter in space, potentially with somebody that's hurting you, we actually saw a big increase in rates of domestic violence. And in fact, coming out of the pandemic, nationwide, we are at a high for domestic violence homicides. In Washington County, we're at an almost all-time high for homicides, and the majority of those are domestic violence related. We've seen that in the news escalatingly, unfortunately. And so when I see our numbers having gone up over 300% from 2021 to 2022, it's hard because I wish that that wasn't happening, but at the same time, I'm glad that we have a place where people can go. At least people know where they can go if they need additional services, which is really challenging. In fact, overall in 2022, we provided 4,537 survivors with 8,344 services, which is one of the benefits of the model of the Family Justice Center, is we have 18 different agencies that work out of that facility so they can get services like on-site orders of protection, because we have a court system right there. We're able to do safety planning, advocacy, emergency shelter, hotel stays. We can do food, we can do diapers, we can do child care on site, we can do counseling, we can do reporting or investigation by law enforcement. We can do all kinds of different programs because all of the agencies have decided that they want to work together in order to provide this service. And what we know about domestic and sexual violence is that it transcends so many different kinds of systems. So we all needed to work together in order to pull down the barriers between us in order for survivors to be able to access those services. We are currently starting we have started and are the midst of a strategic project to open a new center called the Family Peace Center. And this one is going to incorporate, we're going to move, and this one will incorporate CARES Northwest, which will then bring an entire arm to our organization that provides services for child abuse. And so CARES Northwest, if you're not familiar, is the largest child advocacy organization in Oregon, and it is who serves the metro area. Right now, they're serving more kids from Washington County than they are Multnomah County, even though they're located in Multnomah County. And so we decided to work together to bring CARES Northwest and open a second location in Washington County housed inside of our facility so that their families could receive all of those wraparound services as well. And so we are about 3 years out from the opening date. We're currently acquiring a facility at this time. But when we do that, we'll be able to add a whole extra component to our services and create a center, which actually will be the first of its kind in the Pacific Northwest, that works with survivors of domestic violence, sexual violence, and child abuse, which will effectively wrap around the whole family worth of family trauma. And so we're really excited about that. And I wanted to share this update with you guys because the City of Tigard, since we opened, has financially supported the Family Justice Center. We are extremely grateful for that. And it is an incredible show, not just to us as an organization, but to the folks that live in Tigard. Tigard is actually one of our third highest populations of folks that come to the Family Justice Center, and you wouldn't necessarily think that, but just behind Beaverton and Hillsborough, there's Tigard, and that is because we have such a great relationship, not just with the city, but also with our law enforcement partners. Your police department does amazing work with survivors in your city, and oftentimes Tigard police officers will bring survivors themselves to the Family Justice Center. And so I see you over there. Thank you for everything that you're doing. In fact, one of the Tigard officers sits on our work committees and is helping us plan for the Family Peace Center. Chief is always asking me about different things and what's the stats and how can I help and all that sort of stuff. So Tigard is just very committed, and I'm very grateful to you guys for all the work that you've done in supporting all of this. And it brings me hope to see that so many of your citizens are able to access the Family Justice Center, even though we wish they didn't have to. So that's all for me, unless you guys have any questions.
Questions? Comments? Thank you for what you do, and thank you for your briefing. And I share the sentiment of the value that you bring to our community that I wish we didn't need.
Yep.
It's important work, it's important for our families, and it's really wonderful to hear about one place in order to get all of those services, and especially, you know, families and children and all of that. It's just also really hard to hear. Council
Yep.
President Hu.
Thank you for your service. I just want to share one story and one question.
Please.
So I was a volunteer lawyer for Oregon Law Center, and I represented many domestic violence victims right before you were open. So I'm so, and it just breaks my heart sometimes after I represent them in court. They will call me and say my car broke down and my abuser, well, accused abuser, cut off my credit card so she could not get her car fixed.
Yep.
And just broke my heart that I couldn't do anything more for them. And so I'm so glad that, you know, now you provide that extra service that they can rely on. And one question I have is, in the packet you mentioned that you are actively engaging advocacy at state level to change laws or make laws better. Can you just share a little bit about what kind of laws you are seeking to change so you can make them better for domestic violence victims?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. And first, I want to tell you that Oregon Law Center has remained a partner of the Family Justice Center. There is an attorney at the Family Justice Center, so thank you for sharing that, and that is a hard situation. Some of the laws that we are providing advocacy for are to increase safety for survivors. There was some advocacy that we did towards some additional protections for victims in Senate Bill 48 when we did the bail reform in Oregon, because there are some pieces of that we wanted to tighten up in terms of safety and notification for those survivors. There is also currently a Senate bill that would, and I'm going to forget the names of the numbers. I'm very sorry about that. There is one that we are working on that is in order to bring forfeiture by wrongdoing to Oregon. Oregon is an anomaly in the United States in that if the accused tampers with the victim and they don't show up to court, Oregon will pursue that victim and then hold them in contempt and potentially put out a warrant for them, even if they don't come because they're so afraid. And so the rest of the United States does not allow that. It's called forfeiture by wrongdoing, and therefore we're asking the state of Oregon to come in alignment with the rest of the United States. There's also several bills for funding that would provide funding for emergency housing for survivors. There's a lack of housing everywhere, but one of the main barriers for survivors in safely leaving their situations is a lack of housing. I personally have worked with survivors that have said that they're going to stay in their situations because they'd rather do that than be homeless. The number one cause of homelessness for women is escaping domestic violence, unfortunately. And then there were several others that didn't make it through, but we'll try again. And there is one actually in the capital requests for lottery bond revenues for the Family Peace Center project. So we're advocating for that one.
Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come here and brief us and talk with us about the important work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out.
Okay. Next on our agenda today, we have the Tigard Municipal Court Annual Report with Judge Oberdorfer and Senior Court Clerk Fenton. Hello, welcome.
I am Judge Emily Oberdorfer. My pronouns are she and her, and I am here with Senior Court Clerk Holly Fenton, who will give you a little talk later. We are pleased this evening to present the 24th annual review of the Municipal Court for the City of Tigard. I recently learned that our official name is actually the Municipal Court for the City of Tigard in the charter. That is not how we refer to ourselves. We are Tigard Municipal Court on our business cards and everywhere else. So maybe that'll change with the Charter Review Committee. We are a court of limited jurisdiction. We are established by Chapter 5, Section 21 of the City Charter, as well as Oregon Revised Statute 221339. Being a court of limited jurisdiction just simply means that we're limited in the types of cases that we can hear. I am the second presiding judge, only the second presiding judge that the court has had. Our previous judge was here for about 30 years. His name was Michael O'Brien. That makes me the first female presiding judge in the city of Tigard. We have concurrent jurisdiction with Washington County Circuit and Justice Court over violations and misdemeanors triable in Tigard. And that means that in addition to hearing the violations and the code violations that we hear now, the state traffic violations and the city code violations that we hear now, we can, at your direction, at council's direction, hear misdemeanor cases as well. We do not at this point. It would probably take us a little while to get up to speed to do that, but that is certainly something that we could do that would help alleviate some of the pressure on Washington County Circuit Court while they're dealing with things like domestic violence. Felonies always trump misdemeanors and violations in Circuit Court. And I understand that they are still quite backed up from COVID. So cases like DUIs, shoplifting, things like that get put on the back burner. If we were to hear them here in Tigard, we could get to them much faster, intervene much faster, which is certainly beneficial when it comes to things like DUIs and folks stealing diapers that just need to be pointed in the right direction. Let's see. The bulk of our cases right now are for speeding and what I put in quotation marks, red light citations. That's actually called failure to obey a traffic control device. We have probably 2/3 speeding tickets, 1/3 red light tickets, and almost all of that comes from the city's photo enforcement program, which is how I got to know Lieutenant Erickson. We are not a court of record here, which means that unlike this hearing, we do not record our hearings in the municipal court. I have, thanks to a question from Councilor Wolf, I've looked into a little bit about what it would take to become a court of record here. There's a statute that governs that, 221342. It would be a decision of City Council. It would be on the court to send notice to the Oregon Supreme Court that that's what we wish to do. There is no fee for that. The fee would be in gathering the equipment and working with IT to get that set up. It's my understanding from talking to some of my other colleagues that the price to obtain the equipment would be roughly $5,000. I've spoken with the representative of the company called For the Record that handles that. He has been in communication with the IT department. Thank you, Keelan. And if you would like me to look further into that, I am certainly happy to do that. If we are considering handling misdemeanors, I think that I would prefer to do that on the record. Cases that are appealed from Oregon courts that are not court of record go to the circuit court. So if I get appealed out of this court, it goes to Washington County Circuit Court and they hear it de novo, which means they hear it as if it was the first time it's ever been heard. Some people feel that that is getting 2 bites at the apple, and that's where the recording comes in. It is my understanding that I get appealed about once a year. So not a huge issue on the appeal thing, but certainly in misdemeanor cases, it would be larger. According to my colleagues in Milwaukee and St. Helens that are both courts of record, it did not add, becoming a court of record didn't add any tasks to the city recorder's office. I spoke with city recorder about that a little bit today, and I think that she got that same information. So public records request and all of that would be on the court to provide those. And in speaking with my team, everybody's pretty gung-ho on that. They think that they could do that. One of our most recent hires comes from Washington County Circuit Court and is very proficient with the For the Record, the actual recording service. Did that daily for a few years, so I think that she could get us all trained up to speed. I did that as well, but it was about 15 years ago, and I hope that it's changed since then. Some of our goals, well, our first goal is always to provide an impartial local forum for adjudication of relatively minor cases in a fair, professional, equitable, and efficient manner. We also, oh, this is our second slide. Oh, thank you. Let's see. We also try to promote justice, act as a community resource, and provide education about public safety. So pointing people towards places where they can get those services, directing people towards the police department for things that they need. Folks come to us with all kinds of questions about the city, since our window is right there. Where do I recycle my medication? How do I get in touch with the mayor? Those kinds of things. How do I get a marriage license? All of that kind of stuff. We try to help out with all of that stuff, and we're hoping to do more of that as we're out of the pandemic now. We would really like to increase community engagement by working with the local schools, participating in more city-planned events, and my recurring article, the Judge's Corner article. I'm laughing a little bit because I'm overdue on getting that most recent article out. Shouldn't have put that in my report to council. We are looking forward to participating in Pride Month by offering free wedding services to any community members. Love is love. Doesn't cost the city any money for me to have that service. We usually charge for it, but for the month of June, we will waive that fee to celebrate. We hope to continue to provide court-specific anti-racism training to our teammates and to the community. I'm really pleased to have Kurt here and helping us, guiding us along the way with that. Excellent addition to Team Tigard. We are also hoping to reduce the time between a not guilty plea and a trial date. Some of that is because officers are unavailable. Some of that is because we were missing teammates. We had about half the teammates we needed for a while, so getting those trials scheduled was a bit of a hardship, but we're caught up now with the exception of one officer who has been out for a long time, and we wish them well and look forward to seeing them when they're back. We're also considering appointing a third judge pro tem to ensure access to justice. So last week, thank you all for approving the Jenny Myrick to be the pro tem judge. She was here today and had some trials, and it's my understanding she got along well with the team and did a good job. So the judge pro tem, we also have Bruce Leibowitz, who was appointed at the same time Judge Michael O'Brien was appointed about 30 years ago. When I became pro tem here in 2017, Judge O'Brien thought that he needed 3 judges pro tem. So we have 2 now, and our caseload is about 4 times as much as it was when Judge O'Brien was here. I don't know exactly why he needed 3. But it seems fine to me to have another person on deck. So it may be something that we do, toss a wider net and consider getting somebody else in here. It's also really good experience for an attorney to look at things from the other side. So as far as the court team goes, we recently completed a reorganization that resulted in 2 of our teammates being promoted to senior court clerk. The senior court clerks, we don't have a court administrator right now, and so the senior court clerks help me handle advanced administrative tasks. They supervise the team when I'm not there. They make sure that I keep on track and keep an eye on my typos. And I'm going to turn it over to Senior Court Clerk Fenton to tell you a little bit more about our team.
Hello, thank you for having me this evening. I'm going to talk more about our team. Get my right note here. For the first time, I think Judge already alluded to this, for the first time since the implementation of the photo enforcement system, for photo enforcement program, the municipal court is fully staffed, which allows for excellent customer service. So we're very excited about that.
See how
Pardon me.
excited they are?
I'm I was going to say, I'm caught on the Uber snacks. That's all you had to say if you want
We
us
have
to
a
stop
great
by.
team. Look at those people. We've implemented new training procedures to help ensure a well-rounded team with an understanding of the work we do and the rules and the laws that govern our policies and procedures. The Tigard Municipal Court has a very supportive team environment. We work together cohesively, maximizing individual strengths of team members to bring out their best. And then I'm going to talk about our caseload. So next slide, please. Between April 1st, 2022 and March 31st, 2023, there were 17,066 cases filed, which is 7,148 fewer than the same time period the year before. More than half of the tickets, approximately 10,465, were for speeding and issued by the photo enforcement system. 4,718 of the photo cases alleged failure to obey a traffic control device or photo red light. Citations issued from in-person stops were slightly down from the year before, with a total of 1,883, down from 2,104. Next slide, please. Our traffic safety program. Diversion continues to be a popular option for eligible defendants and helps further the city's goal to improve driver safety. Those who enroll are required to take a class and pay a fee to the court within 90 days. If the participant completes their obligations within the allotted time frame, the citation is dismissed. No defendant is turned away due to their inability to pay the court fee. We have them come talk to the judge. And 2,602 people completed the program. And I'll turn it back over to you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, I get to talk about some of our successes. I can't tell you how proud I am of this team and the customer service that they provide to the folks that come in. As I mentioned before, people come in with all kinds of questions, and they are really doing a wonderful job of either finding the right answer or finding the person who can get them the right answer. An example of that is our person who testified from the community earlier came to the court window yesterday looking for the mayor, and the team was able to direct them here today. He was able to say his piece. That's the kind of thing that we're doing at the court all the time. As I mentioned before, we recovered from the backlog created during the pandemic closures. When I was here presenting last year, we were deep in the hole on that, so we brought ourselves out of that. We updated procedures on cases where people fail to appear or fail to make a payment on their payment plan, and that's resulted in oh gosh, I had the number earlier. Our collections rate increased by double digits, and I don't remember exactly what the double digit was. So what we're doing now, we used to suspend people's licenses when they didn't do what we wanted them to do, and we don't do that anymore. We send them to collections if it's about money, and if it's about not showing up, we send them letters and say you have to show up. But we are not suspending anybody's license for financial reasons or anything other than safety reasons. So we do suspend people's licenses, for example, if they're going 100 miles an hour or 31 miles an hour or more over the speed limit. Things like that absolutely get you a suspension, but simply not paying the court and not reaching out doesn't get you suspended anymore. It might get you sent to collections, which adds 25.2%, which folks can come back and talk to me at open court about why they didn't do that. In some cases, I can pull things back from collections. Most often, people are just simply start paying the collection agency to avoid those phone calls, and then those checks come back to us and they are processed somehow. That is a mystery to me. We also, this year, and by we, I think I mean Senior Court Clerk Fenton, noticed, located, and corrected a mistake in the programming of our full court software that was sending the first $66 of all of the traffic fees that we collected to the state. Parking fees, thank you. Just parking tickets.
Not all.
Parking tickets was going to the state and county, which is not required. The municipal court has an obligation to pay those fees out when somebody violates state statute, but not when they violate code. So the way that it was programmed into our computer was that we were paying off on everything. We're not doing that anymore. Not a huge, it looked like it was about $30,000, so you know, that's somebody's yearly salary. So we should be seeing that, and congratulations again to Ms. Fenton for finding that for us. We hold open court every week on Wednesdays. I would love for y'all to come at some point and see that. It's really oftentimes a wonderful opportunity for folks to get their license back, to get back compliant with their payment plan. A lot of times people don't get the photo ticket doesn't get to them for whatever reason. They don't open their mail. Turns out it's not them. They can come to court, ask me to set aside the default conviction. I can do that if they want a trial on the case, and I do that as well if they were not the driver. The idea behind open court is that it's a little bit less formal than a court hearing. So I don't know if you recall back a few years ago, people were getting arrested when they showed up for court. Folks that didn't have the proper paperwork were getting arrested when they showed up to court. So there's a lot of people that were reluctant to have their name on any docket at all. They wouldn't show up if there was a docket. Open court, there is no docket. They just walk in and check in at the window so nobody would know in advance that they were coming here. And it's also more conversational. Like this setup seems a little bit less formal to me than the other times I've appeared in front of city council, and it's kind of the same thing. You know, I'm still here in my robe and all of that stuff, but we get to have more of a conversation than a follow the rules hearing. Councilor Wolf also asked me about some of the anti-racist courtroom efforts that we are undertaking here. So Oregon was the last state in the country to require unanimous jury verdicts on felony cases, and that hints towards the history of racism in Oregon specifically. We're lagging behind, our justice system is lagging behind many other states in many other ways, and to be behind states, some of the southern states was really hard for a lot of us in the legal profession on the unanimous verdict. So what we're doing here in our court to try to talk about that, to try to have those uncomfortable conversations, and that just helps everybody have a better understanding of the folks that we are encountering on a regular basis. So we talk about the history of the criminal justice system and the present day realities that stem from hundreds of years of systemic racism. It is not always easy, but it is always fruitful, and the team that I work with does a wonderful job in talking about that. And one example is recently somebody came to the window. It was during a time when lots of people were on lunch breaks, and they expressed to an English-only speaking clerk that they needed somebody who spoke Spanish. We had to, and it's not a big deal to kind of shuffle things around and stop doing one task. We have 3 folks that speak Spanish in our office. So we were able to kind of shuffle things around and get that person taken care of. A few hours later, we learned that same person had had a conversation with a police officer in English for multiple hours. And so then the question came up, were we being deceived? Were they trying to trick us? Were they trying to get out of something? Did they think we weren't going to have somebody for them? But then in talking about it and thinking about it, we thought, well, sheesh, they had a conversation with a police officer in English for a couple hours and ended up needing to be in court. Maybe they wanted to seek out somebody who spoke their native language. Maybe they didn't think that they did a good job. So just to kind of have that conversation, why might somebody have done something? We try to not read into it when people show up in court not dressed in typical court attire, or when somebody has their arms folded. Folks may or may not have noticed that I don't put my hand over my heart for the pledge. That's just a part of my religious aspect. It certainly doesn't have any disrespect for our country, which I love. So, you know, just things like that, not reading into those things, understanding that people are not always going to be like me, and that I don't need to read anything into that unless it feels dangerous, in which case that's a different issue. Like all city departments, we have a language line interpretation that we use for languages other than English and Spanish. That's a telephone service. It is a little bit awkward sometimes. So when we have trials, we try to have an interpreter here in person. That is also a way to help me understand body language and things like that a little bit better if necessary. And in some cases, I get to learn about a culture that I didn't know that much about, which is always a benefit to me and I hope a benefit to our community. When I am on the bench, we also abolished Interpreter Day. We used to have Interpreter Day here in court, which meant that anybody who desired an interpreter came to court on a different day than English-speaking people. That did not feel good to me, and we got rid of that right away. So folks just come in, and it's on us to get somebody on language line or to get our Spanish-speaking friends out here to help us. When I am on the bench, anytime somebody notes an individual complaint about a specific officer, they were racist, they pulled me over because of this, anything like that, I make a note of it. If it happens more than once, I report it to Chief McAlpine, and she is always very responsive. And that's another thing that we're trying to do here. We never ask people, when we give the oath, we never say exclusively, do you swear to tell the truth? We ask people if they swear or affirm to tell the truth. Some people don't want to swear. In some cases, I ask people if they will promise to tell the truth. Some people are, okay, I just need you to tell the truth. What way can you promise me you're going to do that? Promise. So just kind of using regular English, not making everything so formal. We never require people to take off their hat. I've never asked anybody to take off their hat in court. I don't know why they're wearing a hat. It's not my business. Doesn't affect what I'm doing. I also ask people if they are comfortable teaching me to pronounce their name rather than saying, how do I say your name? Because sometimes people just don't have the emotional energy to teach me how to say their name properly, and that's okay, and I can let that slide. A lot of times people will say, you can call me Joe. We can't do that if we're on the record. That's something that I'll have to change, but if we do go that route, but that's something that I do now. I also try to get their folks' names right when they do take the time to teach me how to say it. Personally, anytime I go outside my range of sentencing, if I go lower or higher for any reason, I write down the reason why I'm doing that. That helps me make sure that I'm not, that there's not an internal bias that I'm not seeing. If I have to make myself articulate why I am taking a specific action, it gives me a little bit more time to think about it, process it, make sure I'm doing it right. I am also trying to work with Kurt. I'm on the DEIB Advisory Committee. So I get to go to those meetings. I have recently agreed to help organize the Northwest Public Employee Diversity Conference. Last year, I attended the Anti-Racist Courtroom Conference that's put on by the National Judicial College, and I will attend that conference again this year. I look forward to learning more what I can do to help create an anti-racist courtroom every day. For team member development, as Holly said, our team works really well together. They are just really proud to work for the city of Tigard and are giving their all, not only when they're at work, but also in their free time. Senior Clerk Fenton did Leadership Tigard. Maria Nguyen is doing that this year. And let's see, Holly is Senior Court Clerk Fenton is also an alternate on the Charter Review Committee, so she is working really hard in lots of different ways. I was elected to the board for the Oregon Municipal Judges Association for the second time. Our team is attending lots of conferences, learning more about their jobs all the time. They are rotating through the Court Administrators Conference. Maria and Kobe are going to go this year. Maria Nguyen was also elected Vice President of Membership for that organization, the Oregon Association for Court Administrators. And Diana Lopez has completed every aspect of Court Clerk 2 training, which means that she is competent to handle any task that is assigned to her, which is really a remarkable feat in the 18 months that she's been here. That's something that has taken people years and years in the past. So by simply giving people the authority to learn more, they have learned more, and our court is really thriving because of it. What questions can we answer?
There's a lot. Yeah, Council President who?
Thank you, Judge. So would you please tell us a little bit about the pros and cons of adding misdemeanor cases to your docket? That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yes. So the cons would be more work, more money. We would probably need one more person to staff. So the way that we rotate through tasks now, I would hope to continue that with a jury coordinator type position. And speaking with some of our colleagues in other cities that are close to us, it seems like, well, Beaverton is an outlier. Beaverton also handles DUI cases, and they set roughly 50 jury trials a year. Most other courts are in the single digits for the jury trials that they set per year. So Lake Oswego set 4, they had 1. St. Helens set 7 and had 3. So the actual amount of jurors, which would be the biggest thing, is jurors. For having misdemeanors is having jurors. I should note that, maybe I shouldn't note that. Anybody who violates city code is entitled to a jury trial as well. Nobody has them on their parking tickets, but they could. So we have a rough process for juries, but so that would take a lot of work, is kind of developing how to do that. We would need to work with the police department to see if they felt that we needed extra security for misdemeanors, since they're typically not violent crimes. Harassment is the most violent of those crimes, and that doesn't involve touching. So I don't know how we as a community would feel about security. We certainly could have a jury trial in this room, but the jurors could be in Red Rock, so all doable. Pros and cons would be time and money would be the cons. Beaverton does not turn a profit. They take money from the general fund. The other courts that I spoke to, St. Helens, Lake Oswego, and Oregon City, did not feel that way. They weren't entirely sure if they were profitable or not when I spoke to them. So it might cost our community money. The benefit would be getting folks adjudicated quickly, and that's really what we're about, is relatively minor cases in a local forum. So studies show, if we get somebody from the time that they're arrested for a DUI, if they get into treatment within the next 30 days, they are much more likely to succeed, something like 70% more likely to succeed in their diversion program than if there's a big lapse. So hearing those cases, getting people into diversion quickly would help our community, would just simply be safer. Cases like graffiti, for example, are oftentimes no complainted in Washington County Circuit Court, from what I understand. I haven't been there in a while. And what no complaint means is that they just simply decide not to prosecute it at that time. They could bring it back anytime within the statute of limitations, but they typically don't. When I was a practicing defense attorney, I never had a no complainted case come back that I can recall. And then we could also come up with all of the many municipal courts. Eugene Municipal Court, for example, they provide a lot of services for people, and they do a lot more than simply DUI diversion. So when folks are arrested from stealing from Costco, if they come to court and the reason that they're stealing, if we see that they're stealing laundry detergent, diapers, baby food, and milk, then we can say, what's going on at your house? We can get them into a diversion program, saying don't do anything for, be on probation for 2 years, don't get in any trouble, go to shoplifters education courses, and have a meeting with a lawyer from the Oregon Law Center. Whatever it is that we decide, we could help them. We could get people what they needed without putting them in jail. Washington County Circuit Court doesn't have all of the types of programs that we could have here. And Washington County is big, and they've got some serious crimes that they have to deal with. And so I certainly don't want it to come across that I'm saying Washington County prosecutors aren't doing their job. I absolutely don't think that's their case. I think that they are overwhelmed, and it would be a service to our community to be able to see them quickly. Having a criminal case hanging over your head is among the most stressful things for folks, especially for these low-level crimes like we're talking about, are very often the first time somebody has been arrested is for one of these simple misdemeanors. Lots of courts stagger the way they start taking misdemeanors, so lots of courts say we'll take cases except for DUIs, misdemeanor cases except for DUIs. DUIs take a lot of work. I think that would be fine. I would rather start with traffic crimes because we're familiar with those, and then kind of work our way into, what do we want to do next? Do we think shoplifting is a big deal? Do we think graffiti is a big deal? What is our community asking us to do? What do they think is going to keep them safe? And kind of take it from there would be my advice on how to start looking into that.
Councilor Shaw?
Thank you very much. Excellent report, and congratulations, Senior Court Clerk Holly Fenton, on your promotion. That's fantastic. So great news. We do know that theft is a huge issue, and oftentimes even the salespeople have to watch them go out the door with product. Would having the misdemeanor also benefit retailers? Would there then be an incentive for possibly arrest for individuals who are shoplifting? I know there's a state issue as well, but so is there an economic benefit to retailers?
I believe it was in 2008 or 2009, I was going to say the previous administration at the court, when Nadine Robinson was here and Brenda and Michael O'Brien were here in the court, they did study that. They wrote letters to lots of retailers in the area, asking them almost that exact question: would you do things differently if you knew that they could be dealt with in Tigard Municipal Court? It seemed like some of the smaller businesses were absolutely for it, and felt that they would take more action. The larger retailers, it seemed to me from reviewing old notes, the larger retailers either didn't respond or said that they would not do things differently. So it would probably be a benefit to the smaller businesses. I don't know about Costco and Fred Meyer and things like that.
I'm wondering if, given COVID and the changes since 2008, if it would make sense to go back out, because I know theft, particularly at some of the bigger box companies, if you call them that, may have a different opinion. But so, and then also I was going to ask you about security, and it sounds like that may be possibly something to consider, or having it if you have that additional court cases. So that was my question, got answered by Council President Hu in your answer. So thank you.
So we talk about security a lot, and we recognize that it's a more dangerous atmosphere than it used to be. And anytime we look in the news, we see horrible things. And we understand that we are somewhat vulnerable in here, but we're not scared. I would leave that. I don't have a personal opinion with regard to security on misdemeanor cases, but I am not a law enforcement expert, and I would absolutely defer to the police department on what they thought was appropriate.
Councilor Wolf?
Thank you both, and thank you, Judge, for so quickly answering my questions. And I agree with Councilor Shaw. It would be curious to see, given the changes in some of the challenges with theft in 15 years, what that feedback would be. So I too would be really interested to see if that feedback has changed. And as I was just listening to you talk about the pros and the process and the challenges at Washington County, if the chief was sitting beside you, what do you think she would say in terms of being able to expand the court and add those types of cases?
She's at a conference right now, and we're going to schedule some time to sit down and talk about it when she gets back. We emailed today, and you give me a little time, I'll get you an
I'd
answer
love
to
it.
that one also.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it could be dangerous making assumptions on what our chief might say, but I
Wouldn't do
certainly
it.
hear, I think, broad curiosity and a request, I believe, for more information to come back, that it's something that we certainly want to explore, because I know that, you know, Washington County certainly is behind on cases and it takes forever, and if we can do our part with our community and it end up being a community benefit, even if it's a net zero, I certainly don't need, you know, we don't need to make money off of this, but to serve the community in that kind of way, I think certainly is worth looking into to see if that's the right move for our court.
We will do it.
Okay.
One other thing that I wanted to mention with regard to our anti-racism efforts that has recently become important to me is that I note that a lot of times we use the word citizen when what we really mean is community member. So we have also changed all of our letters that said Dear Citizen to read Dear Community Member. And we just, we don't have much need for that word citizen. With violation trials and misdemeanor trials, there may be consequences for folks that are not citizens, but that would be the only time that we had to mention that. And I've heard some of y'all do that as well, and I really appreciate that. That's my closing thing, unless there's anything else.
Yeah, Councilor Shaw.
Thank you. As you know, Nextdoor has lots of comments, and in particular, I noticed of late on photo enforcement, and perhaps one idea for what you write. I assume it's monthly on the record. Which you mentioned you're a little behind on, which we discounted. But there was comments about, oh, the city is making so much money, they're doing this just to drive revenue, but perhaps there's just some education there on where exactly the fines go, what kind of the predominant amount of activities, speeding, might be helpful for the community, because I noticed there was just a lot of communication in the last month or so, because the budget came out and showed how much dollars were coming from the fines. So just a suggestion.
That absolutely. I really appreciate any suggestions as to what to write in the Judge's Corner article. I am somewhat limited in what I can write. I can't express opinions, or you know, there's a lot that I can't write, and I am always looking for things that I can, and so I will absolutely take you up on that suggestion. I welcome suggestions from anybody in the council or community members or colleagues that have good ideas, what they want to hear from the court.
Yes, City Manager Emmer.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say thanks to the judge for your leadership, to the entire team. When you are here, you hear that laughter coming out of a key area multiple times a day. It happens in a few spots, but it really happens in courts. They really have fun and enjoy their jobs while providing that excellent service. So appreciate what you mean to this organization, and Holly and everyone. So thank you.
We appreciate you too.
I will second that anytime I walk you through. But now I know to stop by because they have snacks.
And clappers.
Oh my gosh. Clappers. Oh, we just got clappers for the whole finance team.
I can only imagine when the budget gets passed, you know?
That's going to be wonderful. I'll be sure to have a camera available.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for updating us, and thank you for all the work that you've done. We've certainly had some challenging conversations last time, and this is a completely different conversation on being caught up and all of the ways that, you know, our court is excelling, and so that's really a testament to your hard work. And so I don't want that to go unnoticed or unappreciated, because we absolutely appreciate everything that you do in order to make the court as safe of a space as possible for individuals to have conversations about what's going on in their life and how to deal with this very uncomfortable and scary thing sometimes to walk into a court, especially with what can go on. So thank you for making it the kind of court that I think is exactly what I would want it to be, that reflects certainly our council goals and the way that we want it to be welcoming to the community to talk about these tough things. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you very much. We'll be back with an update.
I'm actually really excited for that update. I think that's a fascinating potential shift in the court. Next on the agenda, we have our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging update with our DEIB manager, Jen. Welcome.
So Mayor and Councilors, if I may, just a couple quick comments. One, thanks for your overarching interest in embracing DEIB efforts here. I know Kurt has talked with all of you, and he continues to share with us and leadership team and others your expectations, so that's great. Tonight we just want to continue the conversation. We started the very first meeting you had on January 3rd. We hope we can have this as a frequent conversation with the council here during council meetings, as well as the individual conversations that you also have with Kurt. So today is meant to bring you up to speed, to continue to ask questions, and obviously, as you've seen, we have a couple asks of you as well in terms of looking at equity statement and some of the things that continue to move not only the council forward, but this entire organization and community forward. So with that, Kurt, it's all yours.
Mayor, councilors, and Team Tigard, as well as the community, thank you for this opportunity to be before you to provide you an update. I do just want to echo what our city manager has just shared. I'm greatly indebted to your leadership and your sacrifice in making Tigard a better place for all peoples. And so tonight I wanted to provide you an update to the city's greatest resource, and that is the 352 employees that work here. They're phenomenal, they're talented, they're energized, they're focused, and we're really blessed to have this team. My desire tonight is to just provide you, not necessarily an ask, but an opportunity for us to discuss and comment on some of the things that we are looking at to move forward on in terms of initiatives and some focuses. But let me just point to our program management update overview to just share some of the strategic themes and foundations that we are beginning as an organization around this work. The commitment to equity as a statement and a declaration, as well as the Racial Equity Action Plan, which I think all of you might have a copy of that. I'd like to also provide an update to our city and workforce demographics, as well as some of the new initiatives and focuses that I have just mentioned. So let me just begin with this work, diversity, equity, and inclusion for belonging. As many of you know, I took 90 days at the start of the hire to conduct an organizational behavior assessment and provide the report at the end of January to the leadership team. We just reviewed some of the findings that I had shared, and also along with that some recommendations for the organization. With that, there was a great number of questions that had come up in my focus interviews as well as focus groups, and that was a question of why, and it was an emphatic why, and that is, why are we even talking about this? Why are we needing to focus on this? Isn't this just about a special group of people that we're really mainly focusing on? And so I've had to consolidate all of my notes to address some of these questions because they're valid. And so it's always good to start out explaining and providing the foundations of why. So first, I'm glad that the city has in their values the idea of respect and care, and along with that, the idea of doing the right thing. And so this work of diversity, equity, and inclusion for belonging is not about the differences of whether or not I like color pink or another person likes the color blue. What we're talking about is people. We're talking about the idea of embracing the inherent value of every person. And so that's what I've presented and shared with our organization. And so there's a more imperative with this work of just doing the right thing. The other pillar that I often work through with this in every organization is the business imperative. The greater the gap and the greater the disparity among other organizations with whether it be employees or communities or segments of our society, the greater the gap in terms of inequity, it costs a lot of money. And that's the connection in which a lot of organizations don't see. They don't actually grapple with the numbers in terms of what the loss is in terms of efficiencies and proficiencies as they operate. So with that, some of the strategic themes and questions that have come up from the assessment and the report, and some of the questions that were common was, why is this work important? What do we really mean by diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? What's our city's vision and values for this work, and how does this work really relate to what I've got to do every day? Help me connect the dots. What do we mean by this term inclusion? How does this DEIB help my own professional development as well as personal development? And who is our customer and what will be their experience, as well as where do we go from here? So with that, these questions, I noticed and saw that the city of Tigard were good with letters. I saw the community promise and saw the 5 E's. So I presented to our organization the 8 C's to answer those questions. And so in the pilot presentation on diversity, I provided a clarity of what we mean, why DEIB is important. I presented some common languages that we need to have around this work so that we can understand what we're talking about. I shared about our own commitment as a city organization in terms of its vision and our values, and then the connection of how this is related to their work. The other is understanding that people and culture is to state that whatever strategy an organization has, culture will eat that breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so we have to identify what is a culture here in terms of a sense of belonging, a sense of inclusion, and a sense of value. The other is careers. How does this work help my professional development, as well as the North Star for our organization, which is our community, and what will be their experience, and who are they, and how will we bridge our differences. And then the challenge for the audience in the organization around where do we go from here. So with that, I know that this is I'm stating here our own commitment to equity, which is well-versed for all of us. Our vision contains a term, equitable. Our community promises begin with the letter, the word equity. And I love the fact that this pronoun we is capitalized and emphatically bold as a collaborative effort and collective effort together. However, one of the things that I've noticed as I've viewed the council meetings and the presentations that have been brought forward, whether it be reports or updates or plans and so forth, is the term equity used quite often. And as a listener, I'm wondering, what does that individual mean in terms of the use of that term? Has there been a true operationalized way in which equity has been applied to the planning, to the practices, procedures, projects, programs, the budget? And so these are just some questions that I'm sure that any community member would wonder as well. And so what I wanted to bring before you for discussion and to review is that some of the best practices of cities across our nation who are moving in this maturity continuum with this work have come out to just define what they mean by equity. And they've declared that they see the gaps, there are disparities that exist, and they are committed to bridging those gaps to making their city the best place on earth. And that's why I bring before you a draft of an equity statement and commitment declaration for the city of Tigard, in which we can have an opportunity to discuss offline and phrase together. The other piece that I'd like to bring before you is our Racial Equity Action Plan. And I want to just acknowledge some of the amazing employees and the team that put this document together and this plan together. One particular employee who's no longer with the city of Tigard, who took a great responsibility in drafting this document. It was a real loss to lose her, but this is one of the reasons why I'm bringing this work before you, because without inclusion and this understanding of this work, we're going to miss out on good talent that come in and we can't retain them because they do not feel that they belong. And so this Racial Equity Action Plan, why lead with race? Why lead this diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging work with race? I could share two things. One is a question and the other would be an explanation. The question would be, is there any reason why we can't or we shouldn't lead with race? Why not? The second is an explanation. For my 30 years of experience in this work, I've found that one of the predictable indicators of where the topic of race, and more specifically, I'm saying color, you will see the darker-skinned community members or employees in any organization. There is a predictable indicator where they exist within the organization. And so the leading with race is something in which I'd like to present that across every board, whether it be in employment, whether it be in education, whether it be in housing, whether it be in healthcare, whether it be in legal services or whatever services that are out there, there is one pervasive and predictable common indicator, and that is color. And so I wanted to share with you some of the data in which you're all very well versed and understand that exists in our communities, and then just sharing with you a kind of a slide of where we are as a workforce to the diverse communities that we serve here in Tigard. So with the Racial Equity Action Plan, I'd like to just point you to this table and share where the population of our city and our workforce does not mirror or reflect. And then you'll also see the change or the delta for that. The thing that's also most glaring is the positions within this organization that makes the decisions. And that's the managers, that's the supervisors, that's the directors. And you're going to see even a more glaring underrepresentation of the issue of color. So here's some of the new initiatives and focus that I'd like to just update you, is that we are embarking on developing a strategic plan for the city of Tigard for equity. And again, that's going to be a collaborative work that we're going to conduct together. I've noticed and seen and read the wonderful reports of the strategic plans for the police department, the strategic plans for public library, and as well as for the city. And I'd like to encourage us to consider how we would address our mission statement and vision statement of equity in those strategic plans in a more defined role. The other is structure and alignment of this work, where this discussion and topic can be one where I do want to foster a safe space and place to have honest conversations around this topic. We're also developing some wonderful diversity awareness and education and training for our employees as well as our leadership. We're going to be conducting a courageous conversations about race, defining agreements to understand, to stay engaged on this focus and this topic. Expect discomfort in this conversation, as well as understanding that there will be a lack and an expectation of non-closure. We can't solve the problem in a few meetings or in a year or two, but to having those agreements as some thoughts to conduct those conversations. The other is key performance indicators. I'm a firm believer that you can't necessarily manage what we can't measure. And so we want to provide some clear dashboards that are meaningful data for our city that would inform our strategies and to bridging the disparity that exists. So therefore, I'm working closely with the HR director, Wendy, in developing a diverse workforce development strategy and plan. And then I'd like to also share with you that the GIS program administrator, Preston Beck, and myself, we have just convened a project team on the Equity Mapping Solutions project, where I serve as the sponsor, and he will serve as a project leader. And we've convened a wonderful team together, and you will be very happy with the product that we will deliver at the end of our charter. It's an overlay of mapping that will provide these amazing data around where the equity is mapped all across our city, and down to just even tree canopy and where the trees exist and where the trees do not in certain neighborhoods and so forth. So I'll provide an update on that with Preston when we deliver that tool for you. The other is a diversity conversations toolkit for managers. I've created 3 prompts simply because several of the managers are unfamiliar to have these conversations, so we wanted to provide a resource. The 3 prompts are: one is a beginner's level of just throwing a question and prompt out there for their team to discuss. What does diversity mean to you? What does inclusion mean to you, or whatnot? The second prompt will be a more intermediate question, and then the third will be a more advanced. But we're wanting to get resources in the hands of our managers to lead and to be the one responsible in fostering a culture of belonging. Which then leads to the Racial Equity Toolkit. When we speak about this work of equity, we should have a clear standard in terms of how that has been applied all across the board. And while I believe that the training and the standardization of a racial equity toolkit might be cumbersome at first for our organization, as they discuss planning and projects and programs and all of those sorts. I believe that we'll have a better product at the end in terms of having a consistent way in which we can state that we have applied the lens of equity. And then performance evaluations and performance reviews. Ultimately, what we need to do is to have this work of people and culture as a full responsibility of every manager in this organization, and we need that to be tied to their annual salary increase as well as their merit increase. There needs to be a level of accountability that is going to ensure that we will have high-performing teams as well as high-performing productivity as well as high-performing proficiencies around skill sets that managers need today to be successful in managing very, very different individuals. And so we're here to wanting to make this city the best city in the world. That is the model that I need to operate with in order to give my best as well as others to give their best, and just to provide kudos to Judge Emily. I want to share that I was responsible of taking that photo of her team because I was the one that was intrigued at the laughter and fun that was coming out of the courthouse room. And I had to beg for an exchange for a slice of cake for that. But we need good leadership in this organization, and good leaders inspires people. They will be the ones that will draw out the best out of their people. And we value every single member on this team. And so I'm here to be of a value and support in how we can change our culture to be a more inclusive and belonging place. So with that, I'll just open this time up for any comments, questions, or thoughts.
Seeing no, yeah, Councilor Wolf.
Thank you, Kurt. That was excellent. Note that I'm a huge champion, and Mayor Lube, I just want to say, when does council get to be, jump in and be part of these conversations as well, and just appreciate the opportunity. And I appreciate the framework around employees and measurement and how we really get after diversity of staff and lift up those opportunities for existing members and how we grow our workforce. So just very excited. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
I was going to say, you cheated with my question of, can we participate in any of the initiatives?
Mm-hmm.
Or can we also be included on the toolkits? Because I think there's plenty of opportunities and things that, I as an individual could learn.
Okay.
So.
Of course. Design and communications are working to making that toolkit pretty and appealing. So we should have a draft out next week. Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, please include us. Yeah, Councilor Shaw.
Appreciative of you including the KPIs, because I think that's going to be important to ensure the work gets done and hold us accountable to what is being done. And you said there's 352 teammates?
Yes, and that was as of January 3rd.
January 3rd, great.
Yes.
Okay, and I know we have a number of positions that we're hiring for that it's on the website. So
Right.
putting a plug in, please, if you're looking for a good job, City of Tigard's it. But the GIS map process, is that a separate software? And I'm looking at a few folks. Does that one day integrate, or should it integrate with Tyler?
With Tyler? Well, we're hoping to, so that we don't create a separate track where it doesn't converge. So Preston has been outstanding in just laying out some of the work that has been previously done, and the team is that we've convened is just a very talented, creative bunch, and so I think all of you will be very happy with the product that will be delivered to you.
Okay, well, I will continue with my questions. So one of the things that you said was as far as, retaining good talent and, the cost of losing talent. And I certainly understand with your work in, the private sector needing to convince for-profit businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just say, me as just an individual and the mayor, I don't need to be sold on that dollar value. I am simply sold by embracing the inherent value of every person and treating everybody with the dignity and respect that they deserve, and for them to feel valued as a teammate in Tigard. And so that is my expectation, and the counselors are free to say theirs as well and have a group discussion. But that is my hope and my expectation for every member of Team Tigard, to be respected with, have that dignity and respect, and their inherent value be embraced.
Wonderful.
And so, well, I just want to, as a finance person,
Yes.
it's not about the dollars to me, it's about the human being.
Right.
So I just wanted to state that on the record.
Thank you for saying that.
I also want to ask you to ensure, because this is, fairly new work that's been in the work, and you are fairly new to your role, and I want to ensure that you feel supported in the work that you're doing here at the City of Tigard, and to ensure that you feel that you have the authority to execute on this work, that we are behind you, and city management is behind you, and that is loud and clear.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yes, I could just affirm that you as the mayor, and along with several of you councilors, you've provided me your own personal equity statement, which made me jump and dance, because it was inspiring words that came from you. And City Manager Steve has been a tremendous support and leader for us. And of all of the management that I've had a chance to meet, I've been very encouraged and supported in their desire to make the city the best place on earth. So we're having some really great discussions. I'm meeting with directors personally one-on-one to really customize and tailor this work in terms of its approach and content that will meet people where they're at and then bringing them along. And so I'm a big proponent of conducting this work slowly, yet surely and steadily, by not rushing and running where I look back and no one is with me. And so I think that the leadership has been really great to provide some really thoughtful insight to what would be helpful, what would be beneficial. And so I've been very encouraged.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Kurt. Just want to echo what everyone's saying about being champions on this issue. We've talked, Kurt, and I just want to emphasize that this is a priority for me in Tiger leadership, and also want to know how we can continue supporting. And there are, other organizations like coalitions of communities of color that have come out with reports like Leading with Race, and they do research justice in Washington County. So there's a lot of work that's been done in the past, and I think we can also build off that work and not have to reinvent the wheel, but amplify all the work that's continued to happen. So would encourage us to continue to reach out to partners, to community-based organizations that are taking action with this work externally too. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Council President Hu?
Thank you so much, Kurt. And I just want to also thank you. I believe it was your idea for adding the belonging into this.
Actually, no.
Just take the credit.
No.
And
no.
But anyway, I just want to say the word, of all the word belonging, really resonate with me the most because, before I ran for this position, I never see a person who look like me or speak like me on the city council, and I was just really touched that even somebody like me could get elected, and I just really feel like I really belong in the city, and hopefully, other people, little kids who look like me, will say, hey, now there's, maybe I can serve on the city council one day because there's somebody who look like me who is already there. So thank you so much. And I really want to thank you for engaging this really uncomfortable conversation in the city. I know it is very difficult because even when I talk to my more progressive friends, sometimes they may be sick of hearing this all the time, and nobody like to be told they are wrong or they are blindsided, but it is a difficult conversation, and I believe that if we stay in our comfort zone all the time, we will never grow, right? So, but there's a delicate balance of telling people to their face they are wrong constantly and bringing them, in and have a proper conversation and explain why it is important for all of us, just not for a selected few, because it's not a zero-sum game. Right. If you hire more people from certain group, doesn't mean other group will suffer because we are all together. So, right. But anyway, thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I'm a firm believer that teamwork makes the dream work. So that's what we're trying to cultivate as a culture here.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Moving on, next item on our agenda is council liaison reports. Do we have volunteers to go first, or Councilor Wolf? Voluntold.
Thoroughly excited.
I honestly wouldn't normally just call.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
It's probably good.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I have 3 areas to report on this evening. First one, April 13th was the Policy Advisory Board for Washington County Community Development Block Grants. At that meeting, the advisory board approved the action plan for 2023 for the use of the CDBG funds. So just as a reminder, because it was certainly a learning for me, is there's the 2024 consolidated plan of how to really move forward the funding via HUD, into the county and Beaverton and Hillsborough. And then the action plan is just how are you doing that in that particular year. So that moves to the county commissioners in early May for final approval. So that was a big thing, and then changed some policy adoptions to, I think, make it more efficient and clean up some language. And on April 17th, Council President Hu and myself attended the Lake Oswego Tiger Water Partnership Committee. And City of Tigard staff, Jennifer Joe and Ross Horton, did 2 presentations on lead and copper rule revisions, and then also lead and copper testing. They were very informative, so thank you, Brian, for that as well. And also got a preview of the upcoming budget for the partnership and the water costs. Always learning more about chemicals and water usage and all those things. And then we'll meet again this summer. And then finally, actually, the Committee for Community Engagement doesn't meet until May. But I did volunteer with Hope Pollard at the library for the home initiative, which is what flew off the table. And so it was a great opportunity to connect with some community members on what would they love to see in their neighborhoods. And some of the feedback was interesting, kind of a mid-sized market, grocery market, so I don't have to drive all the way to Fred Meyer or not a convenience store. That's something that's smaller and local and walkable. And then also a huge interest, it was a mom, navigating with about 3 kids, going, where is Tigard's Community Center? So, she's taking classes at Conestoga or would love to be part of our programs, but they are filled up very quickly. And so that was her feedback in the conversation. So that's it. So thank you, Mayor Loeb.
Yeah. Council President Hu?
Well, mine will be a lot shorter. I'm reporting on Town Center Advisory Commission, who met on April 12th. So there was a briefing about upcoming Downtown Reimagine public workshop, which I'm very excited about. So that will be Wednesday, the 26th, from 6 to 8 at Tiger Library. And after staff has gathered public input, they will present that to the Town Center Advisory Commission, and then it will eventually come before council. You'll go to Planning Commission first if there's a co-revision, and then Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the City Council for any adoption. And they also talk about building improvement grant. There was some discussion about, previously we've increased building improvement grant to $75,000 matching grant for eating and drinking establishment in downtown, and there were discussion about also increasing it to $75,000 for establishment in the Tiger Triangle area, but that recommendation was not adopted. So currently, they will only recommend the $75,000 matching grant in the downtown area. So that's all I have.
Councilor Shaw?
Thank you. So I attended the Water Advisory Board, and we talked about Tigard's usage of water from 2022 and 2023. So we were slightly above in 2023. Also, the Tiger storage, we have approximately 192-day supply compared to 111. So I think we all have witnessed all the rain and the extra snow that's happened. So I think that definitely bodes well for the state of Oregon, but also for the Tigard. And Lake Oswego Tigard Water Treatment Plant and Bonita Pump Station, there was an update. I learned more about chlorine, alkalinity, pH, and water temperature, which fluctuates in tandem with the temperature of the source of the water, the Clackamas River, so that's been fascinating to learn about. The Charter Review Committee, we concluded our 8th meeting, and I see one of my fellow Charter Review Committee members here. The past 2 meetings, we discussed a number of topics, including the number of counselors, council selection, mayoral powers, mayoral selection. Charter Review is going to be taking a break for 2 weeks due to the State of the City address on Monday and the city budget meeting the following week, and we will resume on May 8th. So looking forward to that discussion. The Transportation Advisory Commission's really exciting, lots going on, including the Get Active Move for May Challenge. And so that is really to get us all out of our cars, moving in our neighborhoods, in our parks. And there's a number of events from Story Walk on May 1st to Rock and Roll School Day on May 3rd, an introduction to Tai Chi on May 6th. May 7th, of course, the Tigard Farmers Market begins, and there's a rock and roll challenge that day. So I'm looking at Council President Hu. We may have to see who rides the furthest to get down to the fastest to get down to the farmers market, which I know you're volunteering that day to work. And then May 13th is the Tigard Murals bike ride. So you get to ride around town and look at all the murals that we have. So that's exciting. There's a whole bunch more events. I didn't want to list them all. But also a reminder, I think I mentioned earlier, the City of Tigard is hiring. Go to the website, in particular folks for Public Works, and then information technology as well. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, so I attended the library board meeting virtually on Wednesday, April 12th. The main discussion was preparation for the joint city council library board meeting that will be taking place next month on Tuesday, May 16th. So I'm looking, I got a sneak preview of that. I also attended the Regional Waters Providers Consortium Executive Committee meeting for the first time on April 12th as well. And after talking to Rebecca, the managing director, moving forward, we decided that I will just participate in the full board meetings that occur 3 times per year, since it would be a little bit more relevant. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much. A couple of things of note at the R1 ACT meeting, Assistant City Manager Trich and myself, well, I really made comments and she presented on Hall Boulevard with ODOT. It was really well received, just a robust discussion on the partnership between ODOT and the City of Tigard and the way that we're working together, and really discussed as a model of how to do this and work in tandem. So I really love being able to brag about how Tigard is doing it first as a way to show the rest of the state on how to do something, and we continue to do that. So just wanted to give kudos to our city teammates who are working really, really hard behind the scenes and assisting us in this process. The Oregon Transportation Plan is also available for comment through May 12th if you want to comment on the state of Oregon Transportation Plan. As far as Washington County mayors and the chair of Washington County, we're still working on coordinating as a region on time, place, and manner and working forward on that. They do have a proposal out that they're discussing. For the Washington County Coordinating Committee, that was a really actually fascinating conversation on the next urban growth boundary cycle conversation. And I found it really, really enlightening and positive as far as understanding, well, I mean, it was also sort of frightening talking about how from 98 to I think 2004, the amount of acres that were brought into the urban growth and what they assumed would be built versus what has already been built. I will just clue you in that they thought a lot would be built and not a lot has been built, which is contributing to our crisis as far as affordable housing, any kind of housing is concerned. And so one of the questions I asked was, when we look forward on this next plan, how are we taking into consideration the land that's technically already in the growth boundary that's not doing anything? Is it going to be valued the same as land that we know is ready to go? And so that's certainly something that they are fully aware of, and they are looking at changing their process, which is where you really have to come to the table with an active plan to act on, rather than saying it's going to come. And they do have those planning grant dollars to help us do those sorts of things. And I also praise them for continuing to look at different ways to do it. You know, even doing the land swap, because we are ready with our plan to go. to really address this regional crisis. So I felt very positive at the way that their presentation came to the table, saying we know this is a problem and we're working on ways to solve it. I mean, that's certainly not going to build 50,000 units tomorrow, but it will help us continue to get there. So I felt positive from that conversation. So that is my report out. Okay. Oh, City Manager Reimer, you look like you were gonna. Okay. So non-agenda items, because of the conversation and the presentation that the police chief had last week on our graffiti and talking about Metro Paint and Council President whose comment, you know, it feels like they're getting a double whammy. I kept thinking about there has to be something more that we can do as a city for our community. And part of it was also, excuse me, inspired this morning. I was at the Tigard Breakfast Rotary Club, who also is a wonderful group in Tigard who continually asks, how can we help? What can we do? And it reminded me we regularly have a lot of volunteers that come to us wanting to help the city, and we don't always have a great solution for them. So the light bulb went on of, is there a way to put this together? Is there a way to really leverage Metro, even if we even budget a small amount of dollars, it can make a significant impact for us to store paint and to have paint supplies, and potentially look at some sort of program where it gets reported, it comes into the city, we ask, do you want to take care of it? Do you want us to activate our volunteer network? And if they say that, it goes out to our volunteer network of somebody who can come and pick up the paint and take care of that issue. I mean, that's just a pie in the sky sort of potential way, but I think the city can play a convener here that would make a significant impact on our community and those being impacted with graffiti, that, you know, we could, I don't want to say spend minimal effort, because that's certainly not the case, but a small amount of effort that can really leverage a lot of relationships and a small amount of money to make a big impact. So I'd like for us potentially to have a quick discussion, but my ideal goal would be to direct the city manager to come up with a plan and report back to council on perhaps a 6-month trial of how could this go and how could this run for us to be more supportive. I feel like that was a lot of talking. Councillor Shaw?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great idea, and one perhaps we could have the city manager just come up with a draft plan. I know you have a lot on your plate. We got budget, but perhaps at some point a draft plan where we can just review it and have a further discussion.
Councillor Wolf?
So Mayor Loop, were you able, was it kind of sitting at Rotary and then post kind of light bulb went off, or did you have a conversation with individuals there to go, I'm really brainstorming on, just curious as we start to think about community groups, I'm even thinking about the community engagement committee, like how do we truly kind of start kind of acting on this to see what kind of interest would be to support this effort?
It was before that, really, but it was also thinking of, oh, hey, this group is also asking for ways that they can participate. But it could also involve our youth who are looking for service hours, serving the community and making it more vibrant. I think, you know, and I think that's open to groups that could potentially be as interested, and maybe it shifts over time, or maybe it's a variety of groups. I had the big idea, and I don't want to put too many parameters on potential execution, because I think, you know, our city management staff would probably be the best experts to advise us on the best way a program like this could run. Yeah, Council President who?
So are you thinking more of a private property graffiti or public? Okay.
I apologize, yes. You know, we certainly take care of the public property, but I was thinking specifically private property. So homeowners, their homes, their fences, businesses, any of those sorts of things where an individual, as you stated, we're really getting double hit, potentially having a solution. But I mean, we can't just go and like take care of it for them. We would have to get their permission for our volunteers. So I think that's where it could get a little sticky.
Yeah, so maybe, of course, it's up to to the city manager, but maybe we can somehow coordinate with Mr. Ken Ross, our co-enforcer. Maybe that would be the easiest way to figure out who's in violation, but just doesn't have the resources. So, so maybe Ken whoa. So Ken can out of battery. So maybe Ken will be a good person to coordinate that. But yeah, just a thought.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think Ken is a great first stop because that's where, typically the first line of reporting comes in. And I think from there, where does it go? So I don't want us to get too far into operations. It's more of like, this is a policy and allow city management. No, but I think Ken would be the first stop. Yeah. Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yep. As Councilor Shaw said, we'll brainstorm with a few different departments, obviously, that'd be involved in this, and then come back with some ideas on how we can move forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And okay, we are. I was expecting you to have an agenda administrative report. It's throwing me off. So Tigard City Council will go into executive session to discuss real property negotiations under ORS 192-6602E. All discussions are confidential and those present may disclose nothing from the session. Representatives of the news media are allowed to attend executive sessions as provided by ORS 192-6604, but must not disclose any information discussed. No executive session may be held for the purpose of taking any final action or making any final decision. Executive sessions are closed to the public. The City Council will adjourn after the executive session. Thank you so much. Good night, Tigard.